Hey everyone, and welcome to this bite-sized lecture on Chapter 2, Week 2 in class. Now, just a reminder, these lectures are small and are simply meant to be supplemental to your reading. I just want to kind of try to provide you guys with a little more deeper understanding on some topics if I'm able to, which means you still need to do your readings. Don't just watch these and try to take your quizzes. You'll fail. And remember, you need to do your reading to pass your quiz so later on you can pass your midterm and your final. These are just simply meant as a chapter overview to kind of discuss what's going on in the chapter. This week, our reading is going to examine the counselor as a person and a professional. We're going to examine how the counseling professional can have personal needs or problems that affect the work they do and or their therapeutic relationship with clients. We're also going to look at things such as stress and burnout. We're going to look at transference and countertransference. And we're going to look at ways we can mitigate stress in the field. Because remember, even though we may become counselors, social workers, different sorts of human service professionals, we're people too. So, this chapter starts out by talking to us about how counselors or human service professionals, must be aware of the influence of their own personality and needs. Think about that. Counselors or human service professionals must be aware of the influence of their own personality and needs. Why is that? Well, it's because our needs can affect our number one priority. Now, in human services, you'll hear me say this all the time, what is our number one priority? Our number one priority, numero uno, is our clients. They are the most important. And if we're not aware of our own personality and our own needs, we can affect our clients by not giving them the full care they deserve, by not making them our top priority. And what are some examples of some personal needs that can affect our clients? What are some examples of needs that we may have that might challenge our relationship we have with our client, therapeutic relationship? Well, the book gives us some to look at. The need to tell people what to do. If we have a need to tell people what to do, the need to control, that can affect how we treat our client. A strong desire to relieve all pain from clients. I think we can go on to say all pain or obstacles from clients, I would add. A lot of times, we get into the helping profession because we want to help people. And when we want to help people, we don't want to see them ever have to struggle. However, that can foster an environment full of dependence, where we're not teaching a client how to make good choices. Instead, we're teaching a client to be dependent on us to make good choices, which is not good for the client. Finally, another need that can affect our relationship with our clients is a need to have all the answers and be perfect. Perfectionism does not work in human services. You're going to run into issues that are confusing, that are different, that are new, and you're not going to have all the correct answers. So we have to work on our personality in order to understand that sometimes things are not going to be perfect. Otherwise, we can affect that relationship we have with clients. Excuse me. The book goes on to discuss personal therapy for counselors. It points out that it can be beneficial to both students or trainees or those people who are working in the field and have experience or specialists as well. It points out that it's a good form of ongoing self-care, and it lists several reasons for participating in therapy. I apologize, I can't talk today. Some of these reasons include to explore your values and motivations for becoming someone who works in the helping field. And this is very important. We talk about this in other classes as well, to understand why we want to help people, and we need to try to make sure that's an altruistic choice. Another reason it's important another reason why it's good to engage in personal therapy is because you can begin to examine how your needs and your actions affect your life and how you use power in your life. And it's really good to help identify and explore your blind spots and potential areas of countertransference. Countertransference we're going to talk about in a moment, but countertransference is when we place emotions and feelings upon our clients because of things that have happened in our life. So it's really good to go ahead and know about those before we encounter them when working with clients. Finally, it's also good for remediation purposes. I will say this, I've known many social workers, physicians, psychologists, counselors, and of all those individuals I've known, several of them have also been in therapy, and almost all, I've never met one of them who have said that therapy did not bring them some benefit, whether it be in their personal life, whether it be in their professional life. All the people I've known who have went to therapy have pointed out how it helped them. So if therapy is an option for you, or you have the means, it may be a great idea to receive personal therapy. Transference. Transference can be defined as the process whereby clients project onto their therapist past feelings or attitudes they had towards significant people in their lives. In short, a client may have an attitude about you, or a certain feeling towards you, due to the relationship they've had with others in their lives. So what this means to say is, transference is when a client tries to place feelings or emotions they had with someone else upon us as therapists or counselors or human service professionals. One good example I can think of is if a client had a particular bad relationship with their father, and say I, as a 55-year-old man, if I make it to 55 and I have a client, and the client walks in, they see me with the gray hair and my glasses and my hearing aids in, and they see me and it reminds them of their father. They may automatically not have as good as a therapeutic relationship with me if they've had a bad relationship with their father to begin with, because that transference may bring up feelings and they'll transfer those onto me. Our book points out that counselors need to be aware of their personal reactions to a client's transference, so you need to be aware of how you react when a client transfers feelings onto you. And also, all reactions of a client to a therapist should not be considered transference. So just because a client likes you or doesn't like you, or has a certain feeling or attitude towards you, does not automatically mean it's transference. Finally, dealing appropriately with transference is an ethical issue. We have to recognize it and deal with it appropriately. Countertransference. Now, countertransference in some ways is the opposite of transference. It's projections by the therapist that distort the way they perceive and react to a client. It's a therapist's emotional response to a client that may interfere with their objectivity. The book defines it as a therapist's total emotional response to a client, including feelings, association, fantasies, and fleeting images. Countertransference can occur when clinicians or people in the helping profession demonstrate inappropriate affect, when they respond in highly defensive ways to people, and when they lose their objectivity because their own conflicts are triggered. Countertransference or transference can be constructive or a destructive element in the therapeutic relationship. The book then gives some examples of countertransference, which are being overprotective with a client, treating clients in benign ways, rejecting a client or refusing to see a client because how you feel, needing constant reinforcement and approval. This often happens with new workers in human services. You need your client to tell you what a good job you're doing or how you've changed their life, and that's not really a fair expectation to have of a client, because we're there to help the client change their life. Seeing yourself in clients, this happens often too. If you see someone who reminds you of yourself, you automatically start to treat them different or have different feelings towards them because you feel like you are them. Developing sexual or romantic feelings for a client is a type of transference, and it's also a big no-no. In the state of Kentucky, nothing will make you lose your license faster in any of the credentialed fields such as social work, counseling, and other human service jobs than having a relationship or a sexual relationship with a client. We don't do that. Giving compulsive advice is a type of countertransference, and desiring a social relationship or a friendship with clients is unethical and is something we don't do, and is also a form of countertransference. Client dependence. Client dependence is very important. I think client dependence is, again, very important because it goes back to that original reason why so many of us got into the helping profession. We want to help people. And as our book points out, client dependence, a temporary type of dependence from your client on you to help them, is not problematic. That's why they're there. Your client comes there for you to help them. However, an ethical issue occurs when we as counselors, social workers, human service professionals encourage and promote the client to stay dependent on us. Remember, we want the client to have autonomy. We want them to have independence. We don't want them to be dependent on us. So if we make that the goal, that's unethical of us. And as the book points out, that can manifest in several different subtle ways, including human service professionals may keep clients dependent, or they can continue to delay termination instead of saying, "Okay, you're doing well now. You're finished with us here." You just keep them coming back and coming back. Those are all unethical. We don't do that. Remember, we don't want client dependence. We want client independence. And then our book talks about stress in the counseling profession. Counseling, social work, human services in general can be a hazardous profession and lead to something called empathy fatigue. Empathy fatigue is when I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. Empathy fatigue is when we all ran out of emotion. We just we're apathetic because we spent so much time caring. And there's a lot of different sources of stress that can lead to that. And some of the sources of stress are feeling that we're not helping a client. This occurs very often. You've worked with the client over and over and over again, and you just don't see progress being made. So you start to feel like you're not really doing any good, and that can lead to stress. When we try to accept full responsibility for a client's progress, whether they be good or bad, that progress be good or bad, not the client. Whether the progress be good or bad, if we accept full responsibility for that progress and don't realize, no, this is me and the client, that can often lead to stress. Another source of stress can be feeling pressure to quickly solve a client's problems. We want to get things done. We want to hurry up and help our client. And a lot of problems can't be solved that quickly. And when we try to put those limitations or expectations on ourselves, it can lead to stress. Finally, another source of stress is having extremely high personal goals and perfectionist strivings. When we have to be perfect, when we have to be the number one achiever, we can stress ourselves out trying to reach those expectations. Burnout and impairment. Burnout is a state of physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual depletion characterized by feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. Impairment is the presence of a chronic illness or several psychological depletion or severe psychological depletion that is likely to prevent a professional from delivering effective services, and it results in consistently functioning below acceptable practice standards. Definitely read more about these in the reading because they'll be more detailed, but basically burnout and impairment can happen if we have all this stress that we're unable to deal with, and that leads to empathy fatigue, which can eventually lead to burnout and impairment. So how do we maintain vitality? How do we maintain our health as a counselor, social worker, or human service worker? Well, we first of all, we need to realize that sustaining the personal self and being able to take care of ourselves is an ethical obligation. And having our house in order, so to speak, and having our own vitality is a prerequisite to be able to help others, to functioning correctly in a professional role. So before we can help others, we have to help ourselves. Ongoing self-care is an essential part of professional competence and personal wellness. So what is self-care? Self-care is positive actions that promote wellness and effective coping. And this includes things such as routine positive practices and mindful attention to one's physical, emotional, relational, and spiritual selves. Again, it's that self-awareness. We're looking at ourselves. I'm having a bad day today. I feel awful. Why do I feel that way? And being able to kind of talk with ourselves on what's going on. There's different therapeutic lifestyle changes you can make to ensure you're maintaining vitality, which is, exercising, eating right, proper nutrition, making sure you make time in your week for recreation and time in nature, having positive relationships. The book just says relationships. However, I think we need to add a caveat to that and say positive relationships, because if you're already stressed out, then you're in a stressful relationship. That relationship can be more of a detriment than a positive. Relaxation and stress management, trying to take time to do deep breathing, meditation, that type of thing. Religious or spiritual involvement, being part of your local body of faith, whatever that may be. And service to others, so volunteering possibly. Clients can benefit from a counselor's mindful practices even if the clients are not practicing mindfulness themselves. Self-compassion can enhance counselor well-being, counselor effectiveness in the workplace, and therapeutic relationship with clients. So basically this last section summed up, we have to be good to ourselves and treat ourselves right. In order to take care of others, we first have to take care of ourselves. If we take care of ourselves and we're able to take care of others and we're mindful, some of our practices may reach our clients through that way as well. Again, this is a bit of a dense reading. Definitely go through the reading. Spend some time with transference, countertransference, reading those. And if you have any questions, be sure and ask me. Okay? And this is it for Bitesize Lecture 2.